All right, let's welcome everybody into the Real Kyper and Bourne Show Leaf Edition. Wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, Sportsnet 590, Sportsnet 360, Sportsnet Plus from 4 to 6 Eastern Time. We are so glad you are with us. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee, Derek Brandeo, Jen Rolnick, all with you for the next 2 hours. You know, I got to say that right off the top of the show, like when I walk in, you guys make me laugh because you take one look at me and you check me out and you're like, different shoes, a vest today. JB, you got a haircut. Like, what's going on? What's going on? Because we want to know, because our lives are so boring and you always seem to have something going on.
You know, it's January, and if you're not showing up in galoshes and whatever, you're going somewhere, and I want to know where. Where are you going? Sam apparently has no
Sammy's
microphone.
out of the loop.
I don't know.
Let me just set the stage.
I'm back.
For. Are you here? All right.
I'm back. Yeah, you look good today, Kyper. If I told you something, Kyper, would you believe that I talked about the Leafs on New Zealand radio today?
No.
Yeah. I did.
He talked. What was the guy's name?
I would talk to my boy Logan Swinkles.
Old Swinkles.
Yeah,
Swinkly.
old Swinkles.
It didn't stem from a wrong number?
No. The guy follows me on Twitter. He somehow loves the Leafs, and he has a radio show down there, and I went on. Talked about the Leafs.
That
Good for you.
cannot be striking a chord in New Zealand. Like, who is that playing to?
They were doing their around the world thing. They went and did something on the Lakers, and they talked about the Leafs. They asked me about Ohtani at one point.
So that's exciting stuff.
Yeah. So my life's not that boring.
Not
I
that
was on
boring
with the
at
Kiwis.
all.
I would also like to clarify that I greatly aspire to have a more boring life. Have you looked outside?
Yeah, it's horrible.
It is like, I need to snort some vitamin D or something. It is depressing out there. You got to go somewhere?
Well, I'm
Ugh.
going to take in the Leaf game.
Okay, that's fun.
Well,
I'm sure a lot of people are going to San Jose. Why? Why?
Yeah, fair enough.
I was surprised at the amount of people in the office today. Walked in, I was like, there's a good crew here. Usually on a day like today, it gets a little quiet around here, but...
Hey, you had trouble pulling yourself out of the sheets today a little bit.
Well,
11 p.m. game for the Zigzags last night.
2-1 overtime victory.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, the show's going to get exciting in the next 30 minutes. Jason Demers, former NHLer, who does some great work with the NHL Network, is going to come by, or at least call in, because we
We'll be on Zoom.
because we got Brian Burke coming by physically.
Yes.
At the top of the hour, which will be great.
Burke in the house.
Jason will answer my question.
Who's on the Sharks?
Who's on the Sharks? What happened to the Sharks?
He might not know who's on the Sharks, but he might know what happened to the Sharks.
Yes.
So coming off, again, the official news of Willie Nylander signing a mammoth $92 million contract. The Leafs back to work tonight against the San Jose Sharks at Scotiabank Arena. And I don't know. I mean, is this going to be just one of those based on what we saw on the weekend? What were the dominated shots to start the game? 20, 22 to 3 or something ridiculous?
It's worth noting that the Leafs just had their best road trip of the season, maybe their best stretch of 3 games of the year. And yesterday we maybe said 9 words about it. So, yes, they went out in San Jose and took it to the Sharks. But, I mean, that was quite the trip, was it not? Did you see anything out of this Leafs team that made you go, okay?
L.A.
Yeah.
The game against L.A., and I don't know if L.A.'s pulled back a little bit. They've come back to earth.
They haven't won in 5 straight.
They haven't,
Really?
right?
Would have loved the Leafs to have beat them when they were hot.
So,
but yes.
I think that may have to come into play as far as Anaheim and San Jose.
But they handled their business.
They handled their business. And for the most part, they've done a terrific job the last 5 years handling their business during the regular season. And I'm not taking anything away, but I don't know whether or not we can truly answer that type of question that you had. Was it you and JD or someone on another show that included you guys had a conversation on, are the Leafs now underrated? Was that you?
No, wasn't me. Maybe it was JD.
Just some other generic
Okay.
white
I don't know.
guy on
I don't know.
sports
All right.
news radio.
Do you think people are having that type of conversation, or is that even a fair question to throw out on our show? Have the Leafs turned
It
a
is.
corner where, to your point, should we not be talking about how great they were in California?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know where you're going with this because I can see the case for the Leafs being underrated when you go, when healthy, that decor been pretty good. Like Liljegren, Giordano over the last couple of years when they're on the ice together as a third pair, been pretty darn good. Benoit's been better. McCabe's been better. You could talk yourself into this team, but then you do have to take opponent into consideration. So I would say the Leafs are on the cusp of a cup contender. There's like a group of them there that you would say are cup contenders, and the Leafs are right there. So I don't know where people see them, but that's where I got them right now, 40 games in.
Are we going back to Elite League talk here? Like,
Yeah,
who the
I think we
actual
are,
ones?
Sammy. I think we are.
Do we need to create a new league?
I think
Was it the first year we did that, or was it the second year?
I
Yeah,
think it's a
great show, whatever it
legitimate
was.
point once again is out of 32 teams, how many are bona fide Stanley Cup contenders? How many are on the cusp? How many are just challenging to be a relevant team come March?
Mm-hmm.
I look at the standings here, and to me, it's a pretty clear cut. Like, you go the top 10 teams of the league, then it goes to the Kings, and then the Kings are 11th, and then it's the Islanders at 12, Flyers, Predators. Everyone I'm looking at here, I'll go through. Kings, Leafs, Hurricanes, Golden Knights, Dallas Stars, Florida Panthers, New York Rangers, Avs, Canucks, Bruins, Jets. You could see all those teams winning the cup.
Well,
The top 10 teams of the league, you could see.
yeah, and
Yes,
like,
concur.
it's still shocking if somebody happened to be in a coma at the beginning of September and woke up today
Yeah.
and heard you say Vancouver and Winnipeg
Yeah,
as legit cup contenders.
But they're legit as
first
any.
and
They'd
fourth.
probably go back to sleep.
the Canucks, I know we're going to get to that in the second hour, but my God, did they lay a beating on the Rangers last night?
Yeah.
Skilled team.
So,
But are the Leafs
and I'm
in
not
that
sure
conversation?
if people
Yes.
are really convinced still that Vancouver has what it takes to win a cup, or even Winnipeg for that. Like, wonderful run and very consistent, a heck of a lot more consistent than the Leafs
Mhm.
over the course of, 35 games now, I guess.
That Hronek and Zadorov trades, plus
37,
Hughes
38 games.
When we talked to Bruff, whenever that was,
Yeah.
and there was like a guarded.
Yeah, he
Right?
wasn't ready to say
And I
this
think-
is real.
And I will say, I think there's a little bit of that here too.
No. Compared to what they're experiencing now, the Leaf fans are world beaters in the last 5 years of being guarded.
Oh, yeah.
They've seen 115 points before
Yeah.
get flushed down the toilet in April.
Yeah. So I think
They're the kings
Yeah.
of guarding.
But this is the weirdest year, Sam. So you listed 10 teams there,
Yeah.
the top 10 that you think in terms of points right now that could win the cup.
Mhm.
If you go beyond that, the Kings are at 11. You
I
put
guess
them in that
I
class.
guess Oilers are 20th.
The Devils are 15th. You can talk me into it. The Lightning are there. The Penguins are 19th. The Oilers are 20th. Like, this year, as much as any, it's a wide open field.
Buddy, you got to do a lot of talking to get the Penguins and the Lightning into that conversation with me. No,
Huh? Not happening,
I've
eh?
watched them play. Both those teams play a lot. Like they're very possible making the playoffs teams. Like I
Yeah.
think, but like winning the cup is a different thing to me. Anyways,
And where are you on needing to see more games like you saw in California where you're just, they're the better team over 60 minutes. Like,
Well-
we're also factoring in that they lead the league in lack of success during regulation, that they've needed to come back late on a few occasions or needed overtime. Does that factor in? Do you care about the fact that they only have one more regulation win than the Ottawa Senators?
Is that current as of today? Because, I mean, they just had 3 regulation wins in a row. I got to believe they're starting to pull away from that group a little bit.
I
Sammy?
really don't care about how they win.
I do.
Like, well, I just
I
think
do. It's
at this, like, outside of having the conversation where it's like none of this matters because it's all the playoffs for this team as it is.
but it
Because
does
we-
matter.
Well, no, it doesn't.
Because
really.
you carry habits from your regular season into the playoffs, Sammy.
Yeah.
You don't flick a switch.
No, you're right. But I think, you getting hot at the right time has a lot to do with it too. Where you look at last year with the Panthers getting hot right at the right time. They go deep. They're a good team, clearly, but they weren't as good as they were in the playoffs all year. Like, it's just getting hot at the right time, having your injury. It is. There's so much of that, Kyper. Yes, there is.
It's getting hot at the right time with the right habits, Sammy.
But you know what, Kip? Last year, their habits, they went to California and got their asses handed to them. So this has to be taken as a positive step to say, we've been losing way too much to these bad teams. They went out and played a 60-minute game 3 times in a row. They have just looked over that stretch to me like a team that was like, we can't keep handing away points. And I think there's some encouragement.
Yeah, and there's 45 games to go, guys. So plenty of time to start working on the consistencies. And tonight, what does tonight look like? Is it continuing business as usual? Is it coming from behind? Is it needing to go to Mitch Marner and Austin for 24 or 25 minutes? Vancouver looked real good from their top line to their bottom line last night and managed to come back not only soundly beating the Rangers, but doing it with everybody under 19 and a half minutes.
Yeah.
Take a look at their lineups. Like, they got a ton out of everybody without needing to go to the wall with their stars. Like, where do the Leafs start looking now moving forward?
If I had access to my computer, I would look up the times the guys played.
That's what I'm doing right now.
In Anaheim, because I don't know.
They were really low.
Yeah.
They were really low in that game because we talked about it on Leafs Talk after. Like, I think Marner was around 15.
Yeah. Oh, really?
They were really low. Yeah.
Tonight, I'd like to see Max play 17 minutes.
Yeah, we're kind of getting to that point. You've talked about how this team is going to get enough points. One thing that's been really encouraging is the Leafs have given up 1 5-on-5 goal, I think, over the last 4 games. They've been playing well. So, yeah, now that you feel like they have their house in order, let's get Max a real game. I want to see
more
Nick
power
Robertson
play
get
time.
back in. Sure, let's start to put some guys in some different spots and kind of figure out, particularly against San Jose, not to take them too lightly, but I think putting guys in different situations kind of gets their attention a little bit. It's almost a way of waking them up and saying, we need you to pay attention tonight. So I would like to see some changes too there.
Okay, we're going to discuss Martin Jones's workload. He'll get the start again tonight. Before we do that, let's go to Sheldon Keefe for our first Kyper's Clipper of the day.
Yeah, I think he's handling it great. Handled it great, certainly on the road trip. There hasn't really been much of a workload in the last little bit. I think going into the game tonight, he's only played 1 game in the last 5 days. So from that aspect, I think he's feeling good and rested and obviously confident. So easy decision to keep him going.
See, I knew he'd come in with a standard cliche answer. That's why I asked you about your password on your computer.
Was that on air?
Was that on air?
Yeah, you see that little black thing that's around me? When you say things, everyone hears it. You gotta press the button off.
I've told you this. I'm not a professional host. I'm just pretending.
Like any corporation where you have to change your password every 9 seconds, it doesn't always go smoothly. So I'm just, guessing on stats today.
Okay, so we thought we'd see the Hildebeest at some point. It doesn't look like it's happening. I don't know if it will now.
I don't. How can it? If they're not going to play him against the Ducks on the second half of back-to-back, not at home, on the road, how are they? They're not going to start him on Sunday.
But I think part of that was he had just joined the team. He hadn't seen NHL shots. Let's get him in practices, get him acclimated. Okay, you've had a week with the team.
Yeah.
Maybe now it's now play him against the damn Sharks tonight.
I think it's a mistake.
It's just, something that we haven't really looked at much.
Hold on. You would play Hildebeest tonight?
I want to see.
Come on. No.
I'd like to see what he is at this level. And I'm not going to base anything on one start, but let's just say for 1 second that Samsonov's done his little stint and he comes back and he's no good. We're right where we were 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's extremely possible, by the way.
Well, it's
probably the most likely scenario.
Why the delay then? You just pushed everything back. Now we still got to give him his first game.
Yeah.
We got to see what he's like. We got to see him handle certain situations. Why not do it now? Why potentially have to go to it a week or 2 weeks from now?
And it feels like, let's say Jones, he's been wonderful and they're going to rely on this guy as a backup or whatever. If there's an injury or two, you're not that far away from Hildeby playing a meaningful game for you. And so game 40, 41 against the Sharks, which is an AHL and a half team, it's the perfect sort of get your feet wet. I'm with you, Kip. I just think let's at least just get this out of the way, rip the Band-Aid off.
So you, Sammy, are assuming that Samsonov's going to come back and it'll be happily ever after with their goaltending situation with Martin, Wool coming back. And
I don't think that. I don't think, I'm looking at the schedule here for this week, 3 games before the back-to-back, right? They go to Long Island after tonight. Then they play the Avalanche on Saturday. And the first start that Jones won't do will be that Sunday night one. Is there a potential the guy who started that is not on the team yet? If
Sunday night?
Sunday night.
Samsonov, don't you think?
I don't think that's way too soon.
Okay, let's go to Sheldon Keefe on a Samsonov update, and we'll pick it up after we hear this. Clip 2.
Just, going to take it a day at a time. I think he's on the ice at Marley's practice right now with those guys, which is sort of a step for him as he's been kind of just skating on his own and spending some time to himself. So, that's the plan.
I can't think he can speak any lightlier on eggshells.
He's just spending time by himself.
Okay. He's now taking practice with the Marlies. It's a big step for him. Practicing with the American Hockey League team.
They're pretty nervous about where he's at.
They're really nervous.
Yeah. It's almost disrespectful to not think the guy can handle some adversity, some criticism. He's in the highest level of pro hockey. If you can't handle some level of, we need him to be good, we need him to get in there, we need him to play a game, we need him to stop pucks, then what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Toronto market.
I just think he should have had some good practices down there and then just put him in a Marley game over 60 minutes and let him clean up some technical things. Okay, I get it. You want to build them up between the ears. This week should have been sufficient, but let's see the technical part. He struggled technically. Are we under the impression that everything that he's battled technically is only because he could not clear his head?
I've seen some great driving range players who can't take it to the course. It's some great hands around the practice green. You got to get it into gameplay at some point.
So where do we think that start's going to come for Samsonov if, in fact, they feel like he's good to go?
I honestly think they don't want to play him in the American League because they're worried about what happens if it doesn't go well there.
And the American League isn't it's in St. John's.
No, it's here.
Down the Gardner.
Yeah.
You think he's got, Samsonov's getting an AHL start. I'm telling you right now, there's eyeballs on that baby. Yeah. It's not like he's going to Bakersfield or going somewhere. It's Toronto. He's not escaping the eyeballs.
Right.
There'll be Leafs writers at that game. It's going to be a thing. They're going to ask to talk to him after. It's not an escape.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that he won't start against the Islanders on Thursday.
Nope.
He will certainly not start Saturday night against Nate.
Correct.
The Nate Dog McKinnon.
Yeah, no, he will not.
And Makar. And Sunday against Detroit at home. A game that we'll be doing, by the way.
Yes, we will on the television. That'll be fun.
Right?
You
think that's an easy game?
No,
Sunday?
I don't. But do you
back
think
to back?
You think there's any chance it's not somebody from the Leafs that makes that start?
You think they'll be that active in the goalie market?
Well, they need a goalie here. Pretty bad.
He'll the beast.
Still
a possibility.
I feel like they're huddling hard, as Treliving said yesterday. They're huddling. It's maybe they're huddling to find somebody else.
Yeah. Well, good luck, because we've considered all the options, and there's no easy answers.
If I'm going to tell you right now who I would choose between Hildeby and Samsonov on Sunday night,
I'm excited.
100% Hildeby.
Yeah.
No question. It's just too soon. He hasn't played in a game. He's been skating by himself. It's you're fixed. It's no.
Well, the longer you wait, the worse it gets.
Do you want the Sheldon Keefe clip? I've not heard it yet on goaltending of.
It was more of a big picture one. It's okay.
Okay.
Let's talk about Robertson.
All right. Well, let's. You want to go decor, JB, or you want to go depth up front?
Well, I'll go ahead and say, I tweeted about Nick Robertson today, so I'll kind of back that up. Is that all right if we go there?
Absolutely.
I think it's stupid he's not playing tonight. Stupid. He is. San Jose is kind of this AHL and a half team I joked about, but they're a bad team. They're the worst team in the NHL. Robertson has struggled getting out of his own end. He spent too much time in that end of the rink. This is not a great team. It's a game where he could play in the O-zone more, maybe get a few more looks, maybe get his mojo going, and not even get his mojo going, just contribute offensively. And whether your goal is to use Robertson as a player or to trade him, in either scenario, you want him to have some good games, right? So a third straight scratch, he wasn't that bad before he got scratched. He'd scored twice 2 of the 3 games prior to the scratch.
Apparently there's some sickness going to the crew. So there's a potential chance he plays because of that.
Okay.
But your point still stands.
Yeah. So
where it's like he's not. They're picking Holmberg over him.
Right. They are picking Holmberg and they're picking McMahon, who you guys know how I like McMahon, but what are we doing with Robertson? If you're going to keep him or trade him, you need to get him going. Why don't we listen to Sheldon? We got a quote on Robertson.
First of all, be confident and feel good about what you've done. Like, he's found ways to produce for us. I think he's shown that he can play in the league. I also, I don't know that he's really fully separated himself from the pack, and that's kind of the next piece. I've talked to him about importance of taking care of the puck and being able to execute plays. He's an offensive guy, so when there's a chance to make a play or a pass or a shot on goal, to me, a lot of those plays have sort of slipped off his stick or haven't quite been smooth, and it's sort of disrupted the offense, which leads to more having to defend more. That's what I'd like to see, from Nick, and that's sort of the next stage for him. But he's fit in well in the spot he has. It's just when we're looking to get someone like Holmberg a little more of an opportunity, it's okay. Where can we make a switch? Where does it make sense to make a switch?
Okay, they have invested in him this season. He's played 24 games. He's scored 5 goals. It's not horrible here. Are they done kind of proving him a little bit if they want to throw him in on a deal? Is that where Sheldon is? Well, we've got enough of him now where under different circumstances he could be a better scorer for you on our team. He's averaging 15 goals.
Yeah. Well, that's the sell, is that his current pace is a 15 to 20 goal pace. He's barely playing with us. Imagine what he could do for you. That would be the sales.
You did that
pitch.
really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Sold vacuums or anything?
Don't you hear him being like, we want a guy that plays defense?
Yeah.
Because it's like they gave up so much defensively from this past offseason to what they signed this offseason, where it's like, we can't have another offense first guy in the bottom 6. Like, we need a guy who's going to play in his own zone.
Because I see a team sometimes really dependent on 4 guys to score.
That's the whole thing, though, Kyper. That's when they're paying 4 guys $11 million next year. That's the whole plan.
But they've also paid a lot of money in the past, and it hasn't been enough.
I know. Oh, I know.
I mean, what's the point here then, Kip, though? I don't know. You want Nick Robertson playing there in the playoffs?
It's like pick a side.
Yeah.
How about that?
I think there's a legitimate case to be made for Nick Robertson that he has been handed a very challenging role. Play on the third line, which we want to play some defense, play 10 minutes per game or less, and contribute offense, and don't play on the power play. It's really hard to score at 5-on-5 in this league, let alone when you don't play very often and you're on the third line playing with,
It's a chicken and the egg thing, though.
It is. Play better, earn more, for sure. I hate to say this because I haven't felt it all year till now, but I wouldn't hate to see him play a little bit with, say, Mitch Marner, or play a little bit with Austin or whatever. Get some run with the offensive guys. Just have a look here.
Or at least show another general manager that's like, he plays with a really good player, he can shoot it in the net.
Yes, absolutely. Give him a chance to play with someone who likes to pass it, because he doesn't. Let him shoot it in the net for you.
But you can't break up that second line at all.
We got a we got a clip from Sheldon on Pontus Holmberg. But before we get into that, I think I've made it pretty clear. I've always liked this guy.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, Sheldon didn't give him a spot and
They didn't like his camp.
keep it. You say they didn't like his camp. There's something that they didn't like.
Yeah.
No question about that.
Well, the 18-year-old beat him for a job.
Right.
Or 19-year-old, Minton. So that was
Okay,
good.
just take it easy on that because it's all in the eye of the beholder on who beat what. And
Well,
like there was something to be said that they probably
Literally.
They unprecedented put a rookie kid in the lineup over him.
Yes, they did. They did. For whatever reason, who really knows for sure? Maybe they were setting him up
What do you want
to
about?
have an asset go to the World Juniors because he wasn't really a lock prior to the terrific camp he had. Could they be setting them up for a potential trade down the road? There's different reasons why, you pump tires up on certain guys. Like, not to take this completely off the rails here, but Minton did not have a World Juniors, and it was very well noted by a lot of people.
He didn't have a good World Junior.
No, he did not.
He was
Okay.
quite bad.
Excuse me?
Quite bad. Just kids. They're just kids. They're just kids. But he was quite bad.
Which usually doesn't happen with like really, really top and blue chip prospects that a guy like Sammy can come on the show and say he was bad.
I know you're not saying this, but I do read, I'm guessing here. If in fact then they don't have a lot of assets and they really love Matthew Nyes and the guy that he could become, and they love Cowan, right? Cowan's a future whatever.
Who wasn't great at the World Juniors either.
Right.
Yeah.
But could Minton then be a guy at the deadline that they go, okay, we can turn this into a real player?
A lot more realistic today than prior to the World Junior Championships. I can tell you that.
Yeah, 3 or 4 bad games, and they're like, I'm not sure about this guy.
I mean, I was on record before the season started that I would trade either of them for upgrades at the deadline.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, let me ask you this before we get to the Holmberg.
We got to go
clip.
to break soon.
Okay, just nobody cares.
Well, we do.
Just
We'll make
relax.
that decision.
Relax there, producer.
I'm telling you, I'm a guest.
Demers is here.
A second rounder in Minton for Chris Tanev, and you re-signed Chris Tanev.
One more time.
Excuse me?
One more time.
Baking powder?
One more time.
Chris Tanev
Yep.
and Minton
Yep.
for a second rounder and a second rounder. Second rounder in Minton for Chris Tanev.
I would
And
do
you-
that if the Leafs had a second rounder.
And you lock in, okay, a third rounder.
Done.
Third rounder.
Done.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right. They don't have a second.
Immediately done.
Where's Tanev in his career?
Yeah, but
Are you getting Giordano at the end, out of him last year? I don't know.
I am doing
Listen,
that. This team is
I'm
good.
a lot more excited with Chris Tanev and Morgan Riley to start the playoffs than as
Fraser
is.
Minton in the minors and a third rounder who could be nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. No.
We'll
Okay.
go to break.
Let's go to break. Okay.
Thank you.
Sammy called
I
it.
appreciate it.
He's
Thank
the
you.
producer. And then after, we're going to welcome in Jason Demers, former NHLer who does terrific work with the NHL Network. We'll talk a little San Jose after the break. You're watching and listening to Real Kyper and Bourne. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sam McKee. Right back at it. Let's welcome in Jason Demers, former NHLer. 700 games. Made way too much money to be hanging out with us right now. But good on you for making time. Thanks for doing this. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Listen, I never forget where I came from, so it doesn't matter how much I made.
Attaboy. How many teams? 4 or 5 over your career? The first one, the Sharks? Like, what is going on with the San Jose Sharks? Jason, it almost seems like, mid-90s when they shocked the world, beating Detroit in the first round. They never really looked back for the next 15, 20 years. And now we look at the Sharks as if they're a 1991 expansion team all over again.
Yeah, I mean, it's chalk it up to contracts they're trying to get out from under and trying to replace it with youth. And they've made no qualms kind of about the route they're going to take in rebuilding, and they put some pieces in place. But I mean, I think it's a lot longer than people think. And, it's crazy because when I started, we were, you never think that. I mean, we lost 2 games in a row, and it was like the sky was falling, and now it's they're creeping up on another 12-game losing streak. So I know they're frustrated there. I know the guys. I talked to a lot of the guys that are still on that team, and it's tough sledding for them, and they're just trying to kind of keep it positive and find some silver lining here. But it's tough as a professional athlete to play night in and night out, especially with the belief that you're kind of going in to lose and you're kind of lambs to slaughter. So I just hope they kind of figure it out a little bit more and try to go on a run here. I feel like them going on the road right now is probably the best thing, and it's a long season. They still have half left, and I think the only way out is through. So anybody who's played kind of knows that, and you just kind of got to put your head down and keep working night in and night out. But I don't. The answers are there's too many answers, but it's hard to kind of apply all of them at once. So they're trying to take it day by day and minute by minute here.
What's the mindset for a player in that sort of situation? I just feel like it's tough to play for the good of the team, block the shots, and be responsible and all that when you kind of know you're playing for your next year, right? You're playing for the next team or the next contract, and it's got to be very easy to kind of think individualistically when you're on a team that's just not going to win games.
Yeah, and the one, I've been part of a team. I was with the Coyotes when we kind of went on that big losing streak, and the one thing I've always learned, and I learned throughout my career, is somebody's always watching, and there's always scouts at every game. Doesn't matter how many games you lose, and I know plenty of scouts that are watching guys night in and night out. So you are very much playing for your next contract and the contract of the guy next to you. So you really do have to check your ego at the door a little bit and make sure that every day you're coming to work, because it is a job at the end of the day. And no matter it may seem to them like the sky's falling, but still a privilege to play in the NHL and be there. So you kind of you got to make sure you just come in and put your work boots on, because you could say all the cliches you want about, you got to work, but it's the only way to get through this for them. And like I said, it's somebody's always watching, especially the management there. And if you want to be a part of their team moving forward, you really have to toe the line. And especially now, because, everything's under the microscope for that management team in regards to kind of watching players.
We're talking to Jason Demers, former NHLer, now doing terrific work with the NHL Network. You probably know that San Jose market better than most here. After going through stretches of 15, 17 years of being a top Western team, how are they handling this?
Like, you mean the fans or like the
fan base?
It's hard because, people, you wouldn't generally associate like a hockey market with San Jose, California, but it is so rabid it's such a rabid fan base, and they're some of the best fans in the league. But you could see that, it's kind of wearing on them a little bit. And especially it's hard, it's hard when you're part of a team that's kind of been in the playoffs and been competitive for so long, not necessarily getting the Stanley Cups, but they've been there so many times in the past 10, 15 years. So it's to have this drop off's pretty tough. And California and these other kind of nice weather markets, you could kind of say and argue there's other things to do. So, fans will only hang around so long before they spend their hard earned money kind of going to see something that's not working. But, I've been to a couple games there. I'm about to go do about a 2-week stint in studio with them. But I've been to a couple of the games this year in San Jose, and the fans still come and they still support their guys. And you could still see, the one thing I'll say about the Sharks team is they are working and they are trying. I don't know if it's system based or it's just personnel based, but guys are working their butts off. So it's like, it's hard to get mad at them. I think fans understand, and they're smart enough to know what the team's doing and what the organization, the direction they're heading in. So, credit to the guys for sticking with it and at least working hard and making sure that they're trying to pay attention to details. But it's tough coming in night out. I've done it once with losing, 10, 12 games in a row. And man, is it tough, especially when you're like out of the playoffs in November, because these games now are, it's really to your point, you're playing sort of for yourself and, for the city. You're playing for the fans because you're trying to, like I said, it's a privilege to play, and these people are paying their hard-earned money. So you got to go out there and give them a show and play for the city that's been so welcoming to this team for so long.
Jason, we're in our Leafs Hour portion of discussing things right now, and I've seen that you've shared some tweets about the Nylander contract and all that, and so I'll just get your thoughts. It's the big story up here. What were your thoughts when you saw that Willie got 11.5 times 8?
About dang time.
Oh, yeah.
What else this guy had to do? I understand the cap situations, and they're already kind of, now they got like 46, 47 million tied up with 4 players. So it's tough, but you can't lose a guy like Willie Nylander. I've watched them now for, the past couple months, and really he is the engine that drives that team. I know Matthews is their pure goal scorer, and he's a moose, and Marner really does do a lot on the defensive side of the puck, as well as setting up teammates. And he's a very talented player, but Willie Nylander overall is just such a game breaker that you need on your team. And he's I'm a fan of the signing. I know now they're going to really kind of be in an issue to free up cap space, and I feel like it's like, who's the odd man out now with the signing? It could be Mitch, but I kind of lean towards Tavares. But how they deal with this, I don't know. I know everybody's kind of been clamoring for them to get defense and goaltending, and that is number one for them. But you had to sign him. I just think he's such a great player. I think he's their best player. He's really coming into his own more and more every year, and he's kind of defying expectations. And for a guy like that to come in with the looming contract talks and them, they've kind of always been playing a game with him in Toronto, and for him to kind of block out the noise and play the way he's played, I feel like getting this kind of cloud away from him might just open him up even more, and he might be even more dominant and free playing. And I could be wrong, but I'm a big fan of his, and I'm, like I said, about damn time.
So you're 35, right? 35 years of age?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're the perfect guy to answer this question, because there's a sense that, according to my good friend here, JB, that we're in an era now where the players just don't give a crap about team discounts or saving some for the team.
I think it was Elliot
anymore.
who said that yesterday.
Was it Elliot?
Yeah, don't put that on me.
All right. You, Elliot, mess your hair up a little bit, and,
A lot of it?
a lot of it. You coming out of, the last few years of your career, was there a sense, because you kind of lived through the whole salary cap thing, so, is there a sense that, like, nobody cares anymore about that the players want to be paid what they're supposed to be paid? And you just said it off the top, you love it about time, and yeah, we want to see that. But, like, is that happen now, that teams don't waste your breath coming to me with a discount, because I know some of you are dumb enough that you'll just blow it on a bad signing anyway, so I'll take it myself?
Yeah, I don't think so at the end of the day, in terms of, I think guys are kind of dictating where the market is. And listen, I haven't fully gone management and on the media side yet, so I still root for the players to get one over on teams all the time, and guys getting paid what they're worth. But with the hard cap and a lot of this, we could have ironed out in the last CBA talks, and if we kind of impose some sort of luxury tax. And I've seen a lot of people kind of post about it, but we are where we are, and the CBA signed, and it is what it is. So I think guys are obviously weighing those options, but the way the league's kind of gone in recent years, I found there seems to be more turnover, and you're seeing less and less older guys, and you're seeing more and more young guys kind of get these longer deals, which when I started was you needed to play 6 years to get that huge deal. And now, you got to have 1 or 2 good years, and you're going to get signed to a long-term deal, because it's more, I think it's better for the teams financially to kind of have a young guy tied up for a longer contract. And it's a little bit easier down the line to trade those guys. But I just think that I don't think that guys don't care, but I think guys are more willing to get what they're worth and depending on where the market dictates. And I mean, listen, if a team's going to make a mistake and, offer you a contract that might be more than you actually think you're worth, I mean, do you take it? Do you not take it? That's such a hard question. That's such a case by case basis. I played with Joe Thornton, and I remember him telling me, it was like my 4th, 5th year. He was like, listen, you can get paid. And he's like, the rest will work itself out. But he's like, if you're only play this for a certain amount of time, this game, and it could be over tomorrow. Willie could go on the ice and something bad could happen. And if you can get financial security, and he's like, take it. But, obviously now that you've signed that deal, you have to earn that money. So I think there's added pressure and stress on a player to do that. But, I don't think guys we're not all sitting on a group thread being like, how do we get the most amount of money and screw over these owners? We're just kind of going with where the market dictates us and taking what we think we've earned and we deserved. And I think a guy like Willie in the open market would have made more than what he got offered. So I think he did somewhat take as much of a discount as possible for how he's playing, but he's obviously loves the city and loves the team, and to have still stuck around with that organization, and after kind of them playing on his heartstrings a little bit, I just think he just took what he's kind of earned in these past few years.
Jason, I'll pivot a little bit and keep it with the Leafs, but go to a different area of the team. You played over 700 games as an NHL defenseman. Right now, Morgan Rielly for the Toronto Maple Leafs is playing 24 and a half minutes per game. I think north of that, he's been super important for them. But what I want to ask you about is he has 0 penalty minutes halfway through the season. What are your thoughts on the ability to defend and play that much and just literally never take a penalty?
I don't know how he's doing it. I don't know if he's cutting a deal with the refs, but I would have attacked somebody or got frustrated on one shift and taken a roughing penalty. But
sure,
he's so important to that team. I mean, he's needed help for years back there, and I still think it's so tough now with the signing is they have to go. They still always need to go get D. They're always missing. Yeah. They're always missing a D-man, it feels like, and they had some get Klingberg's out now and on LTIR, but he does so much and he's so smooth skating. And I think to be a top defenseman now in the NHL, you have to manage your body if you're playing 24 to 20 to 30 minutes a night consistently. You look at like a Drew Doughty, who when he was younger, and we kind of came in around the same time, he played a lot more physical than he does now. And he kind of realized that, like, listen, I could play physical and I might reduce my career by 3-4 years, but I sometimes have to manage and maybe not run out of position to take a hit, and also like not put myself in a position to get hit. So it's even more impressive because there's such a calculation and chess playing when you're playing that many minutes. And, I've done it. I played, I had some years where I played more minutes, and once you start getting into the 20 to 25 range, you really do have to adjust your game a little bit. You can't just be running around, and you got to conserve energy and pick and choose when you go and when you attack. And I mean, it's impressive that hasn't taken a penalty yet. So, and hopefully he takes one tonight against my Sharky and they score on it to finally get out of this slump. Yeah. I don't know. He's a great player. He's so smooth, and I think his defensive side of his games is underrated.
All right, Sam, we've got an over-under yet on Morgan Rielly taking a penalty?
Yeah, it'll happen tonight because we talked about it.
Hey, Jason, terrific stuff, man. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks, guys. You have a wonderful night.
Yeah,
you too. Thanks so much.
Jason Demers, former NHLer, 700 games, and just one of those solid guys that everybody looks for come trade deadline.
The Leafs could use Demers in his prime second. Right-hand shot guy, 6'1", little nasty. Like the perfect guy.
It's so funny. He was just such a steady guy. Whatever team you're on, he's a good player.
Boys, you're telling me
30-some million.
You're telling me 45 games in, someone isn't stepping on Morgan Rielly's stick.
Well, Matthews just took his first the other
looking
day.
like you're. Come on. It's crazy.
Jacob Slavin did this a couple years ago. I think he went like 60-some games,
but I will
20-some minutes.
It's not like Morgan's not super engaged. Like, he is engaged, and I think he's been more physical than he's ever been this year, and like he looks like he should have had penalty minutes by now.
But I think, to Demers' point, that when you're playing that much, you're not running at guys and crushing them and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you're a little bit more, okay, I'm going to play off this guy. You know, should I pinch? No, I'm going to back it off. Like, I think it takes you out of those moments.
I think Morgan's like gotten so much better in the last little while on picking his spots.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple on occasion. Sometimes he's got a habit of when he's in deep, he needs to go behind the net to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And
Up in front.
Yeah. Just other than that, I think he's been absolutely terrific.
I mean, you could make the case he's their most important player because the Leafs D without Riley is far worse than their forwards without any one of their big stars.
They could withstand one of the four guys going down for a while.
Yeah.
Morgan Riley going down for a while?
They're like, well,
who steps in there?
Brody McCabe, top pair. Let's roll.
Oof.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I like both those guys, but it's just like
By the way,
Riley
this happened in playoffs with Muzzin when he was arguably their most important guy, and they suddenly
Marty Marincin
didn't have him.
Got to play in minutes.
Yeah, and you got old Marty in the
Is he
mix.
still around somewhere?
Get me Marty Marincin.
I haven't heard that name in a while.
No.
Do you want to do the Holmberg thing? We don't have a ton of time. So.
I don't care. Yeah, let's listen to Sheldon talk about the guy that I pumped up.
Okay, well, you don't care. Well, you
Shouldn't
should say it if you
better
don't
than
care.
that, please.
What's that? Pontus?
Yeah.
Well,
I told you I would have made an offer for him.
so you love Pontus,
I do.
but do you think you should be playing over Nick Robertson?
If I'm starting game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs,
Yes,
there's not a
Pontus.
chance that I play Nick Robertson over Pontus.
I'm hoping.
That's always my vision. I
know.
don't care about a Thursday night, a Tuesday night in
Do you care about
January.
Saturday nights in January?
Well, it depends on what the alumni serving. Is it the fish or is it the roast beef?
Is it Chianti or is it a nice
That's the only thing I care about.
I personally hope that neither Holmberg or Robertson are in the lineup game one of the playoffs because they've improved the bottom six.
Well, we didn't play the tree living clip from yesterday.
Yeah.
But he did have a quote that kind of made me go, oh.
Oh, really? And we didn't play it?
Well, I'll tell you what he said. He basically said that you don't remake your team at the trade deadline. You know, you can kind of hope to make tweaks to it. And I went, oh. Because the Leafs remade their team last year, essentially.
Well, we were on
6 or
air
7 new players.
In an hour of our show, from the 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, it was a whole new team.
It was like, here's
Yeah.
O'Reilly and
They don't
and
have the
Achari
assets.
and Lafferty.
Sandin was
McCabe.
gone.
Sandin's
Yeah.
gone.
They
Engvall's out. It was
don't
just-
have the assets to do that again. He is correct. But we did see yesterday a very significant trade, albeit with a top prospect
Ooh.
in Cutter Gauthier. So we're going to get to talk about that in the next
Just a
hour
great
as we
name.
welcome in studio.
Cutter Gauthier.
Yeah.
Okay, when I heard about that trade, my first thought was, what kind of name is Cutter?
Well, yeah, it sounds like a Bond villain, kind of. My first thought was, what did who do? You know, like
Yeah.
someone did something.
Yeah. Well, we got Brian Burke in studio after the break. No one's going to want to miss that. And we'll get his thoughts on the Nylander contract because he has been on a bit of a trade him philosophy before the 92 was official. So we'll see if he's okay with it or not.
All right.
Very interested in that. The former executive of the Toronto Maple Leafs, general manager Brian Burke, in studio after the break. You're watching, you're listening to Real Kyper and Bourne. Ready, set, go. The Real Kyper and Bourne show. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. This is the national edition of the Real Kyper and Bourne show. We are live on Sportsnet, Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver, and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by, as always, Bet365. As promised before the break, former NHL executive and current executive director of the Professional Women's Hockey League Players Association, and my former general manager of the Hartford Whalers.
Yes.
Burke, back then when you traded for me, did you ever envision one day this moment right now? Because I sure hell didn't.
Well, I really enjoyed having you on my team. You were a great player for us. You had 17 goals and 300 PIMs, I want to say. I think I remember.
That's a hell of a year.
Look who I got traded by.
Yeah, you had some pressure.
The rating was on the wall.
So that team you had, Nick, on, you called one of your, or maybe your
toughest team.
Toughest team I had. Team?
Well, our heavyweight was Jimmy McKenzie. He was the. He's the guy everyone was afraid of.
Jimmy Agnew.
Jimmy Agnew could fight.
Mark Jansen's.
Kyper. I mean, we had
Sean Burke had a screw loose back then.
He was a big fella too.
He was really good.
As a goalie, one of the toughest goalies in the league.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It was fun.
So how are you?
I'm good. Really enjoying the job.
Love the look. Did we cut a lunch short for you today?
I love that you came with a proper Burke attire
business
today.
Meeting, PWHL meeting. The women's league has been shot out of a cannon, Burke.
It's been great. The women are doing a great job. The league has done a really good job of putting it together. There have been some issues, but mostly it's been positive, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been great.
Have you been surprised by the initial outpouring of support? I think the opening night was 2.9 million viewers for the start.
I'm not really surprised. I know people say that, but the fact of the matter is, women have never been asked to pay to watch women play sports. People say, "Oh no, Canada, U.S." Well, international is different, and the WNBA took 25 years to get to a break-even point. They lost a lot of money because people have never been asked to pay to watch women play women's sports.
Mm-hmm.
So women's soccer is the best example. I think they've started that league now. It's doing great. And soccer's being watched by women, watched by women playing soccer in parts of England, Scotland, and they're drawing well. They're doing extremely well. They're drawing well, breaking even women's soccer in the U.S. So I'm not surprised. I really think there's been an outlet for this that has been provided for people to watch hockey.
So what was the delay up until now? Was it just
2 leagues?
Burke, 2 leagues, but was it okay? The business model of how this is going to ultimately make money. This is what it has to be, right? It just can't be we're out just to support women's hockey. It has to, as a professional league, it has to make money eventually.
Yeah.
So what is the business model? Because my understanding is one investor basically owns 6 teams, correct?
Correct. Single entity.
That's good to start, but that's not where you want to finish.
Well, to start off, first off, it's a single entity league. All 6 teams are owned by one couple, basically. Mark Walter and his wife, Kimber, I believe her name is. I haven't met her. Billie Jean King and her wife are also investors in the league. But for the most part, it's a single entity. All 6 franchises are owned by the single entity group that owns the teams, which I think gives us some real flexibility to start. And they have funded this and bankrolled it properly and staffed it properly. Mm-hmm. So I watched women getting ready for women's games where one woman was waiting for 2 other women while she taped her shin pads. The other 2 were waiting because there's only one roll of tape. Shoelaces, skate laces, things like that. It was never properly funded, never provided for. Now they've said we're going to staff it properly. Every team has a massage therapist. Every team has assistant coaches. Every team has a goalie coach, and they financed it. So it's the best chance we've had to succeed ever in women's hockey.
It sounds expensive to fund it.
It is.
Is there will they continue until eventually? I think the game plan is to have independent entities turn around and say, hey, we'll buy a team for $20 million, $30 million, and then piece it off to private ownership?
I have not had that discussion with them. That would be the logical place to go because right now you can't buy a team. So I've been approached by people saying we want to buy a team, put a team in Pittsburgh, say, or different places, Buffalo. And I think that's the model down the road. But certainly at this point, the goal is to sell tickets, get this thing to a break-even proposition. There is a salary cap, but it's an expensive proposition to get a league going.
So what has your experience been so far heading up the association? The women have not had, as my understanding, any sort of association before. What has been I guess, taking up the bulk of your time, your experience in working with them, and getting this thing functioning?
Well, it's brand new league. Everything's brand new. Everything we've done is new. They've had their first shutout. They've had their first disallowed goal. They've had their first, whatever. So we've been going through working out the kinks on here. So, like, for example, we had some problems getting meal money paid on time at the start. Okay, minor hiccup. The league fixed it. So it's been like a shakedown cruise. We've had some travel issues. We had a flight canceled that really messed up the girls' travel from Ottawa to Boston. So there's been the normal hiccups that accompany a new league. But overall, it's been terrific. Just been fantastic. The preparation, the planning that's gone into this has been legendary.
We're talking to Brian Burke, now the executive director of the Professional Women's Hockey League. Burke, one thing that's abundantly clear coming out of the gate is it's a lot more physical than we probably anticipated. According to the rules, still, there's no body checking per se, but there's been a ton of contact here to the point where probably looks like you just might as well write in body checking in the rule book. I mean, that is by design, correct?
Yes. And the fact is, Nikki, you've watched women's hockey. I know that. But people come to me and say, I didn't know how physical it was. I'm like, that's because you haven't been watching.
Right.
If you'd been watching, you'd know. That's evolved. I remember the first women's hockey I watched in Nagano 25 years ago, and there was, if you touch someone, you got a penalty. It's evolved now to where there's a significant amount of body contact that's permitted, encouraged, and not penalized. And so it's just short of body checking. You see some hits that aren't penalized, and you're saying to yourself, well, even as much as I like it physical, that should have been a penalty. So it's a fine line, but I think the officials have been excellent so far.
And how is the... Oh, go ahead.
I want to stick with the physical part.
Oh, I thought you might.
Because, here we've been the last 20 or 30 years arguing that we need fighting because of the stick work and the physicality. It'll lead to some stick work now. The question is, will it get to the point where the girls are so mad that eventually we might see a fight or two?
I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think that's any part of the selling. Certainly, everyone knows my view on fighting. My view on fighting in men's hockey is never too much for me. I've never left a hockey game yet and said, boy, that was too rough for me. I have a very different view. Well, the league has systematically reduced the role and the amount of fighting. That's been a good thing.
But it's still there, just in case they feel like they need to police themselves.
I would guess that you're going to see a fight or two. I don't want to see it encouraged. I don't know what the rules. I know what the rules say now, but it says 5-minute penalty, and they have the option to eject if they think it continues. And I think it probably will end up being more like a college rule. Like you fight in college, like when I played college hockey, you get kicked out of that game and the next game. So I would predict that's the way we're going with it. So there's very little fighting in college hockey. It does happen. You're going to see at some point two athletes get mad enough they could fight, but it's not something we want to encourage.
Okay, so knowing you well enough as I do, you don't want to encourage it publicly.
Well, but
I'm not winking. I'm not winking when I tell you that. No winks.
Okay. But also, visors would be necessary at that point, right? Like, I wonder if you...
They've got facial protection now, so it's not. That's not. I can tell you this. That is not the way that my players are telling me this is the way it's going to go, and I would speak for them if it were. It's going to be some type of. It'd be a rare instance when you see fighting in women's hockey.
I know there's a laundry list of things we want to get to, so just one last quick question on this topic and all the rules that have changed. What are your thoughts on the unique penalty kill? You score a shorthanded goal and it kills the power play, 3-2-1 standings. There are some unique rules. The players voted for that, like that. How did that come to pass, and do you like them?
That was all done before I had any say on anything. So I think the taking away power plays just doesn't make sense.
Sure.
So, okay, you score a goal. You've already scored a shorthanded goal. Now we're going to kill that power play. That doesn't make sense to me. But the league put it in. People like it. That's fine with me. It's not a big enough factor that I think it's going to be a major factor in the rules.
Sure.
The scoring, the problem with the 3-2-1 scoring is it widens out the standings and puts teams out of contention very early on. That's why leagues have never done it. That's why the NHL's looked at it a dozen times and said, no, we're not doing it, because there is some value to having the standings packed together. So we'll see. I like the fact that we are willing to look at stuff and try stuff. I think that's always a good thing.
Okay, we're jam-packed, as JB has alluded to. Plenty to get into, including the Willie Nylander contract. I think you've gone on record saying that you probably would have gone a different angle with the core four in Toronto, including moving one of them for a defenseman. Do you feel that much more stronger on that side after watching Willie agree to a $92 million no-move contract?
I have no problem with Willie Nylander signing a contract. I think it's inevitable. I said this. I'm still doing a radio show on Sirius XM every Friday. I said this 2 weeks ago. I don't see how they have a choice. Mm-hmm. When they committed to the core four and the no trades and the trade protection, I think they locked in a course of action, and Willie Nylander has delivered on his part of this. He's been outstanding, and not just this year. He was really good last year. So to me, I don't see, I said this on the radio 2 weeks ago, I said it again a week ago, I don't see where Brad Treliving had any choice. I think the course of events we're on, and we followed since the Nylander got here, was all started under Kyle Dubas, and that's what's led to this problem, which I think is still a problem. I don't see how it changes anything. They say the cap's going to go up. They just spent all that money extending Matthews and Nylander, and they're both good signing. I have no problem with any of it, but it has perpetuated this course of conduct that I objected to when it started. So I don't like people who object in real time or don't object in real time. They're after the fact, they say, it's all screwed up. I said this in real time. When they signed Nylander, I thought it was a mistake, but I don't think they had a choice this time around.
We've talked about what that does to the Leafs, next year, where they have four guys making $11 million and more. John Tavares is the captain. He has a no-move clause. I believe you're on record as saying that you don't think it'd be fair to go to a guy like that and say, hey, we'd be interested in moving you.
Yeah, I think it's really, if you didn't give it to him, it's one thing. Yeah. But if you've given him a full no trade, no move, I think it would be unfair to go to him and ask him to move it, to breach that or somehow get out from under that if I had given it to him. Now, if I had not given it to him, I would be willing to have that discussion. Mm-hmm. But I understand a player that wants to stay in one place. I think at some point a divorce is way more desirable result than insisting on sticking to a no trade, but not certainly for John Tavares. He's done his part of this.
For sure.
He's played. The people that underperform, I think you have the right to say they got to do something about John Tavares. I've never heard a fan say that, and I've never said it. I think he's a good player and a good person. He's been a good captain here.
If you were in Brad Treliving's shoes, would you have just waited out this contract to the end and maybe hang it over his head, or do you believe that it would have been a distraction?
I think it would have been a distraction. I think someone would have signed him. I think he would have gone. You got to look at Willie Nylander, what he's done as a player the last two seasons. His body of work's been terrific since he came into the league. His dad played with you in Hartford. So I go back a long way with the family. And I think that you could fault Willie Nylander's play a lot his first few years here. There's a lot of lack of commitment to defensive coverages, not enough effort some nights. But I don't think that's been a fair comment the last 2 years, and certainly not this year. This year he's actually putting himself in harm's way to make plays and score goals. So I think I have no problem with it, none.
So we are in our NHL hour, so I'll take that to Pittsburgh, if you don't mind, where you spent a few years there. Jake Gensel is a guy who is an unrestricted free agent coming up, making $6 million. His agent has made some noise about being willing to walk away, to move, to whatever. Where do you stand on the Gensel situation? Is he a guy that they've just spent a lot of money on a lot of players there? Can they keep a guy like that?
I think they can keep Jake Gensel. I think they should, and I think they will.
You like him?
He's a great kid. Yeah. Like he's a hockey player. He's born to be a hockey player. His dad played. His dad coached. His dad's a longtime coach, scouts now for Arizona, I want to say. This is a hockey family. This kid only knows one thing. He's a hockey geek. He watches games. He plays hard. He's a phenomenal goal scorer, and he's a tough kid. Like, he takes a beating. One thing that we didn't ever surround him with much toughness, and that was a philosophical thing from the coaching staff, the way they want to play. But we never surrounded him with a lot of toughness, and he gets hit a lot, but he's a tough kid. He's a really good player, natural goal scorer. Sid loves playing with him. He's a great kid. So, yeah, I think he's staying.
Mike Sullivan didn't want to have a tough group around him?
No.
For our listeners on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary, we got to ask if all boats rise with the tide of Willie Nylander when it comes to Pettersson in Vancouver. Lindholm, he's not having the year that he had prior, but he needs a new contract. What do you do there, Burke? Do you go race to get these guys locked in, or do you wait?
I think there's a real different set of circumstances between Nylander and Lindholm. The one guy's tearing it up. The other guy's playing okay. I like Lindholm. He's a good player, but he's not having the same year that Willie Nylander's having. And Willie had a great year last year as well. So I wouldn't be in a big hurry to sign any of those guys right now.
Okay. You want to follow up there?
No. I was going to change topic. I wanted to see if you had more there.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Where do you want to go?
I was kind of thinking Cutter Gauthier.
Yes, okay. Absolutely. Burke, I'm not sure how well-versed you are on this trade last night between the Philadelphia Flyers and Anaheim, where the Ducks sent Jamie Drysdale and a second-round selection for Cutter Gauthier, who's a top prospect, just finished the World Juniors. And this one seems a little strange, but is it?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Very weird.
So my first thought is, why the race to trade a prospect you really like if you're the Philadelphia Flyers to start?
Okay, and I think the answer is really simple because they knew the story would leak. The fact is, once the team calls you in and says, we don't want to come here, you're wasting time now before everyone finds out. Because they tell their agent, they tell their best friend, they tell their roommate, and you know how no one can keep a secret on a team. So I'm amazed this secret held as long as it did. Once Philly was apprised of the fact that this player wasn't coming back, then you got to get whatever value you can for him. And I think they got great value for him. I like Drysdale a lot. He's been hurt a lot, but I think that'll work out over time. And second-round pick is no small thing to throw in, but this is a guy who really tore it up for the U.S. junior team and then had a great World Juniors, which is a big stage. That's a big deal. So to me, it's a high-value trade. I sent Pat Verbeek a note. I love big deals. I love big deals. I used to get a big deal, and you'd say, how do we make it bigger? That's Cliff Fletcher taught me that. He'd say, okay, so you got Kypreos for Burke. That's a big deal. Two big-name players. How do we make it bigger? Let's put two firsts in or make it bigger. I love big deals. So I sent Pat Verbeek a note. I said, I love big deals, and this is a big deal.
Did you ever have a player say to you that you had drafted say that they did want to play for your team?
No, not that I can remember, but it happened in Anaheim after I left. Happened with the Schultz kid.
Right, Justin Schultz.
I want to ask you the difference between a college kid and a junior kid, because the junior kid, if he's not signed after 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, goes back into the draft. Somehow, some way, a college kid after 4 years becomes an unrestricted free agent. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's a big difference.
Well, it's not. It's only a handful of players that have stayed and played the 4 years and gotten free agency that way. Justin Schultz was one. Adam Fox was another.
Yes.
You're talking about maybe 15, 20 players.
I know, but even for 15 or 20, like to be able to pick where you want to play at 23 or 24 is way better than the junior route.
Well, and it's shown a distinct problem with the Canadian team.
Yes.
That's where, like Adam Fox was a Calgary draft pick and Schultz was an Anaheim draft pick that didn't want to go to Anaheim. But it was, the Canadian flavor of this is very real. So that's a big loophole. I know teams have complained about it, but I don't think it's worth, right now with labor peace, I don't think anything's worth the work stoppage. You know what I mean? You say, we got to fix that loophole.
Yeah.
15 guys.
Yeah. There
should be a compensatory draft pick at least.
So the most insane part of this story to me is reading that Patrick Sharp and John LeClaire went to talk to him after a game, and the kid wouldn't even talk to them. They went to the World. I think Keith Jones went to the World Juniors. He wouldn't even talk to them.
Okay.
Okay.
Not to interrupt you,
please.
but like,
What do you know?
Like, no, it's not what I know. I'm like, the guy's trying to win a gold medal. Like, he doesn't really want to talk about, his future. That's a heavy conversation for a guy that's there to just try to win a gold medal.
I'm sure they'd have talked to him after the gold medal game. I'm sure they'd have hung around if he'd have talked then.
But they tried.
And he just doesn't want to. That to me is such a bizarre
I don't blame
detail.
him for not wanting to talk to anybody during the World Juniors.
Okay, well, they also went to his team to talk to him at Boston College, and he wouldn't even give him a conversation.
I think you're right. It's fair game to say I'm not talking during a tournament that's this important. But I think this isolation was enforced way before that. I think he went to talk to him at Boston College, and he said no. So he wanted out. I don't know if it's the coach. I don't know if it's Philly. I don't know what it is, but he wanted out.
I mean, Drysdale is a nice piece to get back.
And the Flyers have driven the point. You want out? We want you out. We don't want anybody that doesn't want to be here.
Yeah, that's always been my view, too. I might have one conversation and say, give me a chance to talk about it, but you want out? Start packing.
Except it's not really equal for everyone else, because if Carter Hart woke up one day and said, I don't want to be here anymore, you're going to move him? Anybody that comes to you, Burke, if 6 guys come to you, you're going to move them all? I don't think the precedent's necessarily set on, hey, you don't want to be here, we're going to move you out. That's not really an answer for me either.
Yeah, no, I'm saying for a kid, for an unsigned draft pick, I'd say, you don't want to be here, we'll find you somewhere to go.
Add some undue pressure to yourself as a player, too. I mean, all eyes on Cutter Gauthier now. So they got what they wanted out of that.
Winnipeg, Vancouver, like huge stories in this country, Burke, for what they've been able to do in a very short period of time, turning their programs completely into a 180.
Yeah, and you did it without the Winnipeg coach was missing for a month of that.
Yeah.
And he's a good coach. Yeah. He still owes me $400.
Can we ask why?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. When Bones, he rented my house, I had a townhouse in Vancouver. So we were living in Anaheim. We kept this townhouse in Vancouver, and Bones rented it. And he wrecked my satellite dish. It cost me $400 to fix it. Bones, you owe me $400. But they're missing the coach for a month of it, and still put together this tear that they're the stingiest team in the league to score on.
Very stingy.
I think it's amazing.
Well, and I mean, he's making NHL head coach money. You think the guy could send you an e-transfer now? We're gonna try to get that squared away for you. We don't have a ton of time. I did want to ask about NHL expansion. I've heard you talk a little bit about it in the past. One strength of the women's league right now is 6 teams, right? Like stars on every team.
Stars on every team. It's fantastic that way.
Yeah, and that's great. And so the league, NHL has 32. Is it watered down? Do you what happens here? Do you think they would ever expand again?
Yes. I think they will dislocate their shoulders voting for expansion, which I think is really stupid. Like, I think there's too many teams now, or not too many. There's just about enough.
Okay.
Half make the playoffs, and then all but 8 are out after one round. Like, the math is daunting. But you turn to your owner and say, you're due to win another cup every 32 years. You think any of these owners, especially the newer guys, you think they understand that math? Because they don't. They think you should win every 5 years or 4 years or 3 years. Yeah. And so that's why you have such young GMs. And that's why GMs get fired all the time, is because the owners don't understand the math.
You've been part of enough teams to understand revenues and profits and the $1 billion now label. And there's no question that a free market's not what it's worth. It's what it's worth to you. And if you can find a couple of billionaires willing to go there, good on you. But does the math add up for a lot of teams in our league where these things are worth $1 billion? I look at Ottawa today. We all know Andlauer, $950 US, well above $1 billion Canadian. And it's looking like he's going to miss the playoffs. Now it's just a matter of how much money is he going to lose? I mean, is it realistic, Burke, that these values can hold?
Yes, because history has shown that they will. Mm-hmm. Like I was part of the Fenway Sports Group when they bought Liverpool. Now, this is all stuff that was reported to me at the time as it went along. I think I got the numbers right. I think they bought Liverpool for £388 million from the Gillette family at a distressed price. It was really down. I think they're in bankruptcy. And now the rumor is they've been offered £5 billion for Liverpool. pounds.
Yeah.
So roughly, I think recently equivalent to a U.S. dollar. It's fluctuated since then, but at one point they were pretty close to par. But 4 or 5 billion pounds. You look at the appreciation of the Red Sox since the Fenway Sports Group bought it. So the fact of the matter is, these assets have appreciated. You can't put this to paper and pencil and make it work, Nicky. You can't say, okay, if we sell 18,000 seats at $250 average price, and it doesn't add up to $1 billion. You can't make the math work. It's all about appreciation of assets.
Well, we'll never have to worry about that problem.
It is not an issue for me, I can tell you that.
Out of our league. Yeah. Hey, Burke, you really appreciate you coming in. Good luck with the PWHL moving forward. We're going to watch with great interest.
Thank you.
Okay. Brian Burke, now current executive director of the PWHL. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a little bit more on the Flyers trade of Jamie Draisaitl. We'll get some sound bites from Keith Jones, Daniel Briere, and even Torts. Remember Torts, Berkey? Remember? Yeah, good sound bites still.
Helps
just
our
like
show
you,
a
pal.
lot.
More with Real Kyper and Bourne after these words. All right, our thanks again to Brian Burke. By chance, you're just joining us.
That was awesome.
You're dumb because you missed a really good segment with him. He was fantastic. So download it.
Yeah,
find it. Yeah. And in the meantime, we'll continue on, Sammy, with Game Time.
It's game time, and I don't have my lineup in front of me. Just going to read this here. Oh, boy.
What have you been doing for 20
hold
minutes?
on, I got it. Oh, you want to read it?
It's game time. I need a different sheet. Oh, no. Yeah, I got it. It's game time. Presented by Bet365. Visit the app for latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Sorry, I was a little distracted there with the scribblings of a murderer on this page.
Do not try this at home, people. We are professionals.
It's a long story as to why I don't have what I needed in front of me, but I was just looking at the Leafs line for tonight because there's not many times that you will get as big a favorite as the Toronto Maple Leafs are on home ice tonight.
Right.
They're a minus 450 favorite. So
minus 450.
So mathlete here.
Yeah.
What would that?
If you bet $10, you can win $4.50.
If you bet $100, you would get
$45
a quarterback.
That's essentially where it's at. Yes.
So
good time to bet the other side for a cheap amount.
Here's what I'll say. I know the Leafs have been better against the bad teams in the last 2 games,
but
there are few opportunities like this one out of conference, out of division, first game back from a Western road trip where everyone's told them how great they've played.
Oh, you're setting them up to lose.
Oh, well, listen, he's made a lot of good points here.
This team, I don't know if anybody follows them closely around here, has a propensity to let their foot off the gas in these kind of games.
Post an $11.5 million contract.
The other team has lost 11 in a row, looking to avoid 12 in a row.
Hungry in Toronto.
I do think that the Sharks are so bad that they're like, it's not like they're the Sens or the Sabres or one of these teams that are like kind of bad. They're just really bad, so they may be immune to this. But I would have a look at the Sharks plus 350. So you bet $10, you win $35.
I also think it might be interesting to look at, could you get Sharks plus 1.5 and still make money? Could you get them plus 2.5, a kind of even odds? You know, there's some chances there to get goals and still.
The other thing I was looking at that's not posted yet, I was looking at a Barabanov goal, which is something that, you know, it's not posted, unfortunately, but it will probably be later closer to the game time.
What else you got for us?
Okay.
Enough for the Sharks.
Okay. Line up, please. We're good.
There you go.
Thank you. That was Game Time, presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
Now, if we went back 24 hours, did you have Vancouver like throttling the Rangers on home ice, Madison Square Garden?
Not, I would say they could win, but not to the level they looked.
Yeah.
Like I was flicking back and forth to the national championship game, and every time I went back, it was like they were in their zone.
For me, that was a bit of a statement game, and like Petey's licking his chops
the
right
Petey
now
goal
with his
followed
4
by the
points.
Höglander goal were like, oh my, 4 points last night. And he did the interview pregame with our Sportsnet team, DA and crew, and they asked him about Trouba coming. Is he someone you have your head out for? Your head up for? And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely. That guy kills people." He was very, lighthearted and confident going into that game. Man's gonna get paid.
I was so impressed from top to bottom with their lineup, and if you just take a look at Tocchet and the way he was able to manage all their ice time and get so much out of the whole top to bottom roster, that to me was a huge message. Nobody up front played more minutes than 1930.
You love this.
And
Yeah,
then,
you
put too much stock in the ice
no, I
time
do not.
stuff. Yeah,
I love this.
I'm talking about come April, everybody's shot out of a cannon. Nobody's going in limping. No one's going in a little tired. It's a big deal. I'm telling you, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it makes me want to do some research on, playoff success versus top guys' ice time. There's something there.
Yeah.
You've created homework for me.
They're just solid look.
Yeah.
Rolling 4 lines.
And Rick Tocchet, just looking at the odds here, not in game time anymore, is the big time favorite to be the coach of the year. Plus 175 at this point to be the coach of the year.
Why do we
to
shrug
argue.
off coaches behind the Winnipeg Jets bench on this?
Yeah, I think
Why?
you're right.
Because Rick Bowness left for 5 weeks.
Yeah,
I don't care.
awfully
They,
good since
they
he
win
returned.
it together.
Yeah.
Then have it with Arneal.
For Canadian fans, there's some hockey teams this year. We got a couple of tickets in the lottery, I would say.
Yeah, it's actually nice to go into the playoffs. It's maybe you don't have Vegas and the Panthers in the final again.
Right.
Want to follow up again the big trade with Anaheim in Florida, where Jamie Drysdale, a top 10 player in the draft, was moved to the Philadelphia Flyers for another top 10 player in the draft, Cutter Gauthier. Plus, Anaheim gave up a second-round pick. Can you, first of all, explain to me how a top 10 pick from Anaheim, who's got 120 games under his belt already,
Yeah, and he's on a nice deal, too. It's pretty cheap.
gets traded for a top 10 pick who has no experience in the NHL and is still considered a prospect, and the second rounder has to go to Philly?
You know why?
Interesting.
They sold Cutter Gauthier at the absolute peak of the market. Post-World Juniors gold medal.
He's never
great
played a
tournament,
game in the NHL.
but everyone just watched him be awesome against the best of his peers. And so they called, or I saw something like 18 teams or something about this guy. They talked to a lot of teams. And so to me, yeah, they probably drove the price up. Said they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Who wants Cutter Gauthier? Good time to sell.
We got a few clips on this.
Okay,
All
let's. Where do you want to start?
You want to start with our boy Jonesy?
We'll go with the president of the Philadelphia Flyers on the big trade yesterday. Just for those of you that haven't been following it that closely, Cutter Gauthier made it crystal clear to the Philadelphia Flyers he didn't
even talk to him.
Did not want to sign with the Philadelphia Flyers, and he had no future there. Thus, the trade.
Yeah, he didn't want to be a Flyer. So we had to, come up with a plan. And fortunately, we were able to execute on that plan. His value would never be higher than it was after the World Junior Championships. It was only going to decrease if the word got out there. I have to give a lot of credit to the people that we were negotiating with, that they kept this quiet. It could have become a much more difficult situation. So the other general managers, presidents around the league were outstanding in keeping this a private matter.
Pretty tough to do that these days.
Yeah, and the leverage starts to change in that case. So you don't want to be a Flyer. You're not going to be a Flyer. And we were very pleased in the return that we got, a player that we coveted.
Yeah.
I love that Jonesy just is still talking like he's the analyst.
He lays it out there, yeah.
Like that's something an analyst would say.
Yeah, very thorough.
I don't. I would have handled it differently if I was Jonesy and Daniel Briere. I wouldn't have I wouldn't have moved on it that quick, to be honest with you.
Kip, look at you just said the return they got yourself was like above what you would expect to get. You know, like, what are you going to get that's better?
I don't know. But first of all, the fact that Anaheim threw in the second rounder so quickly on Jamie Drysdale, means that they weren't that high on him.
Yeah, I do think that definitely stands out to me too.
Don't think he's going to be a top defenseman, top producing defenseman. And I know that Anaheim thought he was undersized to begin with. Yeah. And if you're not going to if you're not going to be a top producing kind of Evan Bouchard, I got my names all mixed up.
Yeah, you're good.
If you're not going to be a Bouchard type of producer at that size, then, you know, we're moving on.
I say this all the time on this show. You know, the team knows first about these prospects. And I have seen it in the American League long enough when someone who's a big name but isn't that great, they know first. And I think this should happen more. I think teams, and people are going to hate the way this sounds, I think teams should give up on players quicker because everyone falls in love with their own prospects because their scouts drafted them and everyone's
there's 6
put
layers
them in
of guys
development
saying,
camp.
let's just wait another year.
But the team knows first.
See, I call BS on that because first of all, there's some talk that this guy could be the next JT Miller type of power guy.
Who?
Cutter?
Gauthier.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Drysdale.
Yes.
Anaheim knows what he is.
So
what
let's
he's
flip the switch on you then.
Okay.
Philadelphia.
They can't keep him. They just want to play there.
You first of all, there's no gun to their head. They had 2 more years with him, with his rights. 2 more years. Okay?
But he's probably able to play in the NHL now, Kip. He's going to come out next year. He'll play for Anaheim.
That's right. And if you want to sign a potential contract that can earn you $10 million, I've got it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, well, maybe I'm going to make you wait for 2 years.
Sure.
And that's another decision that the kid has to make.
Yeah. They could have leaned harder on him.
2 years. They didn't have 1 month.
Yeah.
Like, why the race? Because they're worried about a secret coming out? Okay, the kid doesn't want to sign right now.
We still have
Who cares?
his rights.
I've got him for 2 more years. I don't care if people know that he doesn't want to sign right now. Maybe he will in the summer.
Well, that's how you end up with the second then. They say, listen, I know you don't have to move him. We'll throw in a second with Drysdale to do it now.
They would have thrown in 2 seconds maybe for this kid.
I mean, it's possible. I see your point that they had the option to kind of control the kid's career a little bit.
Why the press to go to Sweden and get him to talk?
First off, they got with it a good return. They think they got a good player in a second round pick.
Drysdale turns out to be a 65, 70-point guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
The other thing is, it's possible that this relationship, Briere's not a quick fix for them. He just got hired. He's going to be there. And Jones is going to be there for a while. And it's possible these relationships are badly damaged and they want him gone. And they don't want to deal with him. I got to tell you.
They're potentially just deeply offended where it's not
didn't one of their presidents or somebody say, like, people throw batteries at, they said something in terms of the treatment that he's going to get when he comes back. And I'm like, you don't even have to mention that sort of stuff, do you?
I don't know if you have to mention it or not, but I knew nothing about Cutter Gauthier yesterday. And today I've watched enough interview clips and read enough about him that I got to tell you, don't like him. I don't like, he wouldn't talk to Keith Jones. He wouldn't, fine if you're talking about the World Juniors. He wouldn't talk to Patrick Sharp and John LeClaire.
That's a mistake on his part. That's immaturity on his part.
It is. And I'm not saying that I've written him off forever and he can't change, but you will look back at that being 19-year-old and not being a man and just saying, here's why they don't know Kip. They don't know why he doesn't want to be a Flyer. Just tell him why.
Which is okay.
No, it isn't.
It's okay that they don't know why?
It's okay to not know. I'm not signing. I may never sign. I'm not ready to sign right now. It's okay. We've got 2 years. But, like, hey, maybe he thinks Tortorella's a dirtbag. Maybe he doesn't like the city. Whatever the case is, you don't ever have to have it come out. You can't.
You don't have to, but
all
I
that
think
has to come out is, I'm not ready to sign with you right now. I'm not ready, and I may never be, and I'm not sure where I see my future. But
that's fine. Then he can have that conversation, right? He could have said that. I'm not ready to sign right now. Thank you for coming to watch me play.
And these are his rights.
Of course
like
they
for
are.
people now to sit there and say, "Oh, like this guy's going to get ripped when he comes in," and
should
and they go and find Kevin Hayes and they blame him because there's a report that Kevin Hayes talked to him and maybe talked him out of something.
It's absurd.
Which is absurd.
It's absurd.
Which is absurd.
Yeah.
I know the kid has his rights.
But
he should just tell him whatever is happening.
All he did was exercise his rights to say, I'm not signing.
That's not all he did. He wouldn't even talk to the people.
It's his right not to talk to them.
And it's their right to think he's a jerk for not talking to him.
I know. I'm not suggesting that you have no rights to take this stance and just move him off right away.
Right.
I just don't think I would have done it this early.
I see your point that they could have sort of tried to get him in the lineup. But if they were like, all right, this guy is a Sidney Crosby loving, he did Tortorella hating, doesn't want to be here kind of guy, and they felt they got more than ample return, I don't see the point in hanging on either.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Like, say that secret gets out. Like, Cutter Gauthier wants out.
And then, you know what the first question is? Everybody sits there and goes, why?
But then, like, how much? There's going to be so many teams that are interested in him. Does it really torpedo his value that much, knowing he wants out? Like, you're still going to be able to create a bidding war for this guy. There's going to be, like you said, there's 18 to 20 teams that were interested. Like, if it gets out that he wants
threw
out.
a second rounder in like it was nothing. Mm-hmm. It should have been 1-for-1.
Yeah. So,
I definitely, that made me skeptical of Drysdale's value now. Like, when I saw that and they were willing to move on, I went, they must think he's not whatever. We have more quotes on it. Do you want to hear what Torts is?
Let's. It's Torts clip 1 there, Derek, about his thoughts on Cutter Gauthier.
Danny said that Cutter didn't want to play here in Philadelphia and didn't want to play for the Flyers. What's your reaction to that?
Then we don't want you.
I believe you've met Cutter Gauthier before. Were you surprised that he?
I don't know Cutter from a hole in a wall, and I'm not too interested in talking about him. I'd rather talk about Jamie. He's the guy that's coming here.
Love Torts. But yeah.
He's going for the sound bite. That's Torts' way of making sure that the Flyer fans, get all
riled
up on it. But it's not a great.
I agree. It's a little classless.
It's a little classless on Torts' part.
I don't think he owes that kid anything.
No, he doesn't. But he can also say, hey, I coach the guys that they provide for me.
Yeah.
You could take a little bit of a high road.
Yeah. Torts could say things gentler, breaking it,
But
we're now year 30 of this. He probably could be a little.
But if he does, we don't feature him on our show.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and here he is.
He's not making a Kipper's Clipper.
Torts hour.
Do you want to do the Briere one to just kind of round it out?
Close it
We'll finish off with the Briere.
Looked at us at the draft and told us he was built to be a Flyer, wanted to be a Flyer, and then a few months later told us that he didn't want to be a Flyer, didn't want to play for the Flyers. So in our mind at first, we said we have to protect him. We have to, because if he changes his mind again, and it's out there that he doesn't want to play, it's going to be tough for him to put the uniform on. But when we realized that they refused to talk to us, now it's been months, and he didn't want to be a Flyer, didn't want to be in Philadelphia, it was time to make it happen.
The only thing I want to say lastly on this whole thing is, for me personally, we're really, really insulted play was just a little over the top for me.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Keep it professional.
Couldn't agree
more.
Right?
The guy's got rights. Doesn't have to sign. Let's all be adults in the room here.
I agree. But I will say, I'm happy it happened to Philadelphia because I'm excited for how they're going for the reaction he's going to get.
They won't remember.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this.
They're not mean there.
Good storylines.
And especially
thank God he went to the Ducks.
especially now with these kids, and all of them know how the salary cap works, and they know what their rights are. He's not going to be they're going to come a little faster and faster of players knowing exactly what their rights are and how quickly can I pick a new place to play. And if I go down that path, then you guys have to deal with it. But I know my rights. And if I choose this path, is every team now going to be and rile up their fan base to treat the guy like dirt when he comes in because all he's done is exercise his rights?
Yeah. They don't want, he doesn't want to play for you. He doesn't want to wear your jersey. He doesn't want to be in that city, and they're going to boo him. And that's perfectly fine. That's all sports fandom is. He doesn't want to be on our team.
I'm the Neanderthal on this show, not
what
you.
Do you think sports are? Sports are boo them, yay us. You don't be on our team, boo you. That's all this is.
I'm the adult in this conversation right now.
What? I don't know. We can move on from it. But I think he's going to get booed. I personally love booing people. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm going to spend way too much money on a ticket to see the LA Dodgers to boo Ohtani.
Just to boo Ohtani.
Like, I like booing people. I agree.
But don't throw anything.
No, I won't. No. Maybe I'll throw a bird up. That's all I'll throw.
Couple of birds.
Did you go for coffee or did you listen to our conversation earlier with Brian Burke?
I did a little bit of housekeeping work while I was sitting out there listening. But yeah, I listened to it. I loved a lot of what you guys talked about. Thought the Mike Sullivan stuff was very interesting that you brought up when I came in here. And I love the PWHL contact talk. I really did. Because I've talked about this with you guys off air.
I'm telling you, it's inevitable. We're going to see some fights.
Well, that's to me what the difference between when you watch Canada versus US play women's hockey, when it's at its absolute apex, when it's the most intense, the intensity and the hate for each other is what makes hockey hockey. And a lot of these other leagues that have not worked didn't have the contact, they didn't have the intensity, they didn't have the hate. And throughout this first, I don't know how many games have been played, I've seen snippets of probably 3 or 4 games that have been on TV, and they're nailing each other. And there's contact, and there's scrums after the whistle, and there's going to be real rivalries. That's how you build popularity with a league. Yeah. Because hockey's hockey. Like, there's still, it's just, the contact's very important, and I think it's smart for them to go with it.
I kind of mentioned to Berkey in passing the visor thing. The reason the NHL doesn't want players to wear full cages is just visibility, right? They want superstars. They want people to know who they're looking at. Because there's no doubt the cage makes more sense. I played in the cage in college. You can see just fine. It's much safer. Yeah. It's great. I broke my jaw because I didn't have one on playing pro hockey.
Listen, there's advertisers that have hated the lack of visibility in a hockey game for players without visors, with just the helmet on. It's hard to get a good, clean look at the person, unlike a basketball.
Yeah. Well, basketball is the best one possible.
Most visibility.
Because you're wearing basically pajamas.
Yeah.
But
I do wonder if
Tom
the
Brady
women will eventually wear
Tom Brady
visors.
spends half the game with his helmet off on the sidelines, and they go to him 1,000 times.
Right.
The visibility has been very difficult at the NHL level.
Yeah. And I wonder if there'll be pressure eventually for the women to wear visors.
All right, are we out of time?
Obviously, it's dumb to wear a visor versus a cage.
I don't know. I got to count on our time, and I hear no music.
Well, I got slapped. I got hit in the face with the puck playing.
There it is.
In a visor. I was like, what the hell am I doing?
I'm going cage, by the way.
All right.
I did.
Jason Demers, thank you very much in the first hour. Brian Burke in studio. Always a pleasure talking to Burke, getting his thoughts. Thanks for watching and listening. If you give us a rating and a review, if you get a chance, we'd love to hear from you. Everything that JB's doing wrong, or Sammy, if he's cutting in on us too much, we want to hear from you.
Well, they say that.
All right. 10 games on tap tonight, with the exception of the Montreal Canadiens. I think all the Canadian teams are on board here for a great night. And we're going to be back here tomorrow to wrap up the night of the National Hockey League. Enjoy it, everybody.